Alright, so today we're going to be talking about Chapter 6, Lesson 2. This is all about multiplication and division equations. So, yesterday, when we talked about Lesson 1, with solving addition and subtraction equations, we're going to use the same kind of concepts. So yesterday, when we had the subtraction property, we actually had an equation that had an addition in it. And we had to solve using subtraction. Same thing with the addition property. We had to solve using addition. Today is no different. Just like with we're going to use the division property first, and what that means is our equation is going to have multiplication in it, and we need to use division to solve. So, let's go ahead and look at example 1. It says solve 39 equals 3y. So I'm going to use my line here to separate the left side from the right side. So this side right here is really 3 times y. So in order to undo this times right here, this multiplication, I need to divide. So in order to do that, this is how I show it. I'm going to make it look almost like a fraction, where 3y is in the numerator, 3 is in the denominator, and this simplifies to just y. Same thing is going to happen on the left side. I'm going to create a fraction, where now it's an improper fraction because the numerator is larger than the denominator. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to simplify this, and 39 over 3 simplifies to 13. Alright, let's look at then example 2 here. It says solve negative 4z equals 60. So I'm going to draw my line right down the middle. And again, this is the side that I'm going to focus on because this is negative 4 times z. So this is going to help me because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide. And again, I'm going to make it look like a fraction. So I'm going to erase this, reconnect that. I'm going to make it look like a fraction, where negative 4z is in the numerator, and negative 4 is in the denominator. Again, this will simplify to just z. And what shows up on the left side also has to show up on the right. So now I have 60 divided by negative 4, which happens to be negative 15. Alright, let's look at example 3 then. So example 3 is a word problem, and it says Serena sent 138 emails during the last 6 days. That's an important piece of information. 138 emails, last 6 days. Write and solve an equation to find, on average, how many emails were sent per day. So this is what I'm going to be looking for, how many emails were sent per day. So I'm going to create a variable to help me solve this question. And my variable is going to be e, because that is going to represent number of emails. I'm going to separate this just a little bit here. So now, as I'm going through this, 138 emails in the last 6 days. Which means if I do 138 is equal to 6 times the number of emails that are sent per day. I'm going to create my line down the middle. And what I have here now is I have 6 times e, so in order to solve for just e, I'm going to create a fraction where the denominator is 6, because this simplifies to just e. 138 then also needs to be divided by 6, and what that will be equal to is 23. Now this number means something because it's part of a word problem. So because it's part of a word problem, we have to look at what the question was asking us to find, which is highlighted here in yellow. It says how many emails were sent per day. That's what this number represents. That's what this 23 represents. So we would say that 23 emails were sent per day. All right, so let's look at now the multiplication property of equality. So very similar to division, the only difference is instead of having a multiplication problem and solving with division, we're going to have a division problem and solve by multiplication. So example 4 here is a great example. M divided by 2. Again, this represents M divided by 2. And how we undo that is by multiplying. So we want to multiply. Now, there's a couple different ways to do it, and there's one way I'm going to show you that we don't want to do anymore, and that'd be doing this. The reason why is because the x here, multiplication symbol, looks a lot like an x, and x is a very common variable. So this could be a variable, so we don't want to use it. Instead, we're going to look at something called a dot. So we can use a dot to show multiplication as well. And that's what we're going to use. So let me erase this box here and draw my line down the middle. Now, I have m divided by 2. In order to undo that, I need to multiply both sides by 2 in order to stay balanced. That's why this line is really important, because whatever shows up on the left side also has to show up on the right side. Now, if I multiply a fraction, the denominator and the numerator of the other fraction, if they're the same, they evaluate to 1. Because really what this fraction is going to look like is 2 divided by 1 times m divided by 2. So I have 2m over 2, and this simplifies to just m. Let's kind of separate here a little bit. On the right side now I have negative 10 times 2. I don't have to mess with any kind of fractions or putting denominators of 1 here because negative 10 times 2 is negative 20. Alright, and then last example here. It says the distance d that Lee travels on his bike at a rate of 20 miles per hour for 4 hours is given by the equation d divided by 4 equals 20. That's really nice. We don't have to come up with an equation. It already gives it to us, which is really nice. We still do have to find out, though, how far he rode. So I still want to look at 20 miles per hour for 4 hours, because this unit right here and this set of units right here is going to be really important. So I need to figure out what my variable represents. So my variable is letter D, and that is always going to represent what the question is asking me to find. The question says, how far did he ride? Which means that D is going to represent distance traveled. Now, I have D divided by 4. What I'm going to do, in order to undo that division, I'm going to multiply. Make sure I have my line here. Now, whenever I multiply a fraction by a number, it's really helpful to change that number into a fraction. So now, instead of just multiplying by 4, I'm multiplying by 4 over 1. Because now, when I multiply fractions, I multiply numerators together, so I have 4d in the numerator, and 1 times 4 in the denominator. This fraction simplifies to just d. And 20 times 4 is 80. So again, this number means something because it's part of a word problem. So the question asks us, how far did he ride? So this number represents how far he traveled. So Lee, which was the name in the problem here, right here, traveled 80 miles.